We still had video games? Yeah, 2021 wasn't really much better than 2020, was it? But at least the video game industry didn't implode on itself. Mostly. So we still have our entertainment. And it turns out I did actually play quite a few games over 2021, so here's the ones which I enjoyed. So keep in mind again, just like last year, this isn't top 10 games that were released in 21, just the ones I played in 21. Also, there may be spoilers within, so, watch yourself. Number 10. Nier Automata. No, it's not because of the 2B booty. Mostly. In all seriousness, this game is actually pretty low on the list, simply because I'm still at the very start of the game. But even then, I'm still very much enjoying it. I do tend to like games made by Platinum Games, especially Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, which is probably my favourite from the developers. And from what I've experienced with the game so far, it is a lot of fun. It has that Metal Gear Rising gameplay feel, which is honestly all I want in a game like this. But on top of that, it has good voice talent, an interesting story, a good amount of free roaming, and yes, the 2 booty. I'll admit though, I'm not the biggest fan of the environments, especially since they send you into a desert early and, it's very grey. Very, very grey. I don't like the environments too much. I'm not asking for something to be bright and colourful, but, something other than grey. There isn't much to say since, again, I'm at the very beginning of the game, but I am honestly looking forward to what else I get into in regards to it. Number 9. Project Wingman. So I've only played 2 missions of this game, and it's already one of the funnest games I've ever played. For a simple reason. It has VR support built in. The addition of VR in a flight simulator massively improves on the immersion, and honestly adds a new bit of difficulty to the game, since you haven't put a lot of work into your own movements built inside and out the game. Obviously can't see it out here, because I'm not using VR because it's already bad enough for me again motion sickness. Using your own eyes and not something the game helps you with rotating the camera just makes it feel all that better. Now I know that some people are going to argue that Ace Combat 7 did this previously, and you'd be right. Were it be a DLC pack and on the PlayStation version? That particular bit of DLC hasn't came over to PC yet, which is where I play it on, so Wingman. One of the big complaints I have is that the cockpit's got too much stuff in the way. Odds are it's realistic, but honestly, I just find it hard to see things out even dead ahead because there's just so much stuff in the way. It'd be nice to have a little bit of leniency with, say, a setting of how far forward you are, but I mean, it's not that difficult. I mean, I guess I can lean forward a bit. And like Nier, I can't say much since I'm only at the beginning of the game, but if it continues like this, I'll have a lot of fun to come. If I'm trying not to throw up due to motion sickness, but that's my fault, not the game's fault. Number 8. Freedom Force. Interesting thing about this game, this is one of the very few games on this list that I actually remember being advertised before it was coming out. That or its sequel, I don't remember which, I was a kid back then. At the time, I really wanted this game, but my parents either couldn't afford or simply did not want to get me a PC that was strong enough to play it. And they say only children are spoiled. It seemed like a cool idea though, a sort of parody of the Justice League with campy comic book writing and performances, with each hero having their own specialization. It's kind of like a primordial MOBA before Dota jumped onto the scene. Keep in mind, most games that we got at the time were just straight up action games involving one superhero, and they're not particularly bad. I mean, I love Amazing Spider-Man, but this combining several heroes and they're all original, as far as I know, makes it pretty damn unique if you ask me. Now don't get me wrong, few problems with this game, given its age. Its controls are very much on the clunky side, and it does require quite a bit of fiddling to get to work on modern hardware. Plus, I found the difficulty was kind of all over the place in parts. And while the campy voice lines are fun, it gets pretty old pretty fast with how often they repeat the same stuff. But I mean, if I had to be honest, it's still a good game. I mean, even now. You could probably improve the controls and give it a new coat of paint, and it'd be a pretty decent game, albeit so long as it isn't priced at $60, Rockstar. Number 7. Unreal. Now, my first foray into the Unreal franchise was Unreal Tournament, and honestly, that's one of my favorite FPS games of all time. I was not aware that it was a spin-off of a different game called Unreal. And honestly, Unreal could be considered, well, Epic's tech demo. Unreal looked like their attempt at a Doom clone. I mean, let's ignore it being several years after the original Doom, and, you know, honestly, they succeeded. The game has really good gunplay, a decent array of enemies, many of the weapons look to have been moved over to Unreal Tournament, basically unchanged, and the story? Actually, I have no clue about the story, because it's really difficult to figure it out, and I guess the expansion was okay, but it felt like a downgrade if you ask me. But I didn't enjoy it for its story, I enjoyed it for its gameplay and combat. The same combat which would become Unreal Tournament, which is one of my favorite FPS games of all time, so you can kind of see why it's on the list now. I have played a bit of Unreal 2, but just honestly, it's not doing it for me. It's not grabbing me as much as 1. And beyond that, I mean, I can't say much else. It's just a simple enough, good enough game. Number 6. Age of Empires 1 Definitive Edition. To level with you, this game is on here mostly because of nostalgia. I played the original Age of Empires 1 to death, and its expansion Rise of Rome, to the point where my discs no longer work. Either that or I didn't take good care of them. It could be either when I was a kid. So of course I'm going to be putting Definitive on here since, you know, it's updating a really old game to work for modern computers, and adding all the expansions as well as stuff from the demo, which, you know, you need to get the demo in order to use it. Although, admittedly, not only is the game aged pretty poorly, it's just not as good as 2. It's just not. I think it's the theming. This isn't like Empire Earth where you're gradually making your way through the various ages, though that game has its own multitude of problems. This is covering 10,000 years of human evolution in 4 ages compared to Age of Empires 2's 1,000 year gap. So it's a little jarring with how much things advance in that length of time. Not to mention, I don't know, it didn't really feel like they put much in balancing, at least as far as I can see. Also, in the original, you had these cutscenes at the start and the end of each campaign. Were they important? No, but it still sucks that we didn't get the upgraded versions of them. Instead, they just removed them. I would have liked to have seen Definitive Edition versions of them. Number 5. Dyson Sphere Program. Honestly, I'm feeling like a bit of a hypocrite here because this is very similar to Satisfactory, a game which I put on my most disappointing of 2020. But this one has one advantage over Satisfactory. It's in speed! No, honestly, after going back, Satisfactory is pretty alright. But Dyson Sphere just does it all better. There's far more options tech-wise, giving you more options of how to build up your base, whereas at Satisfactory it's kind of, you have to go through a certain route. The automation system for Dyson Sphere is much more forward-thinking that's needed, other than just building a conveyor belt to an extractor. Things like having to set up an industry to expand to our local logistics, and then system-wide logistics, and then cluster-wide logistics, expanding your power management on each and every planet, operating several bases that maybe specialize in a certain resource that a planet has. Also, you make a Dyson Sphere, which is just so much cooler than a space elevator. I know this sounds like I'm shitting on Satisfactory, but as I said before, I've played it some more and it's honestly pretty alright. I just think Dyson Sphere is better. I guess the easiest way you could think of it is that Satisfactory warped, so Dyson Sphere could run. Number 4. Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition. Do you know like how I said Age of Empires 1 isn't as good as Age of Empires 2? Oh, would you look at that? A definitive edition of Age of Empires 2! Yeah, it's nostalgia again, which is why it's on the list. I can't say much about 4, but I honestly think Age of Empires 2 is the best Age of Empires there is. Everything was improved from the first game. You get unique units depending on your civilizations, different unit actions available like formations, a steady, less jarring advancement in technology, a better siege game, the market, relics being able to generate gold, able to actually get proper fortifications, and many more campaigns. Like, holy hell, this game's got a lot of them. If I did have to say a bad thing about the game, it's... yeah, it still shows its age a little bit. It's aged better, but it's still aged. And while I enjoy having all these campaigns, there's just way too many of them. I counted. There's a total of 186 missions. That is far in excess for an RTS game. And finally, honestly, the voice acting for the definitive edition just isn't as good as the original. The original, they felt like they were given their all, but while the people here have, accents that seem fitting, they just feel like they're doing a first read, which makes it nowhere near as good.
The time for minor skirmishes is over. We now prepare for war. The villain Longshanks is poised to cross the River Forth and threaten the town of Stirling with a force of men-at-arms, heavy cavalry, and a multitude of archers. Our newly forged army marches southward to establish our own base and attack the English before they can ready their troops.
The time for minor skirmishes is over. We now prepare for war. The villain Longshanks is poised to cross the River Forth and threaten the town of Stirling with a force of men-at-arms, heavy cavalry, and a multitude of archers. Our newly formed army marches southward to establish our own base and attack the English before they can ready their troops.
Number 3. Halo Wars 2. Yeah, so Halo Infinite was going to be on this list, but it's frustrated me with the amount of stability issues I've been having with it. And now, I don't think it's my PC. Yeah, it's getting a bit long in the tooth, but it's able to play, modern games perfectly fine. And I don't think it really explains why sometimes I can play Halo Infinite, and it works fine for literal hours. And other times, when I load up Halo Infinite and go through the campaign, it crashes within 10 minutes with no discernible reason. Also, because it's a new game and the multiplayer, is unbalanced, I haven't touched the multiplayer all that much because it's a multiplayer and it's a new game, so the MMR stuff hasn't worked. But I did play Halo Wars 2, and Halo Wars 2 is a really good game. It very much helps as well that the developers of the game are Creative Assembly, who are the same developers of one of my favorite RTS series, the Total War franchise. The gameplay's been made more refined from the first game. There was far longer support for the game compared to 1. The story is very interesting with a ton of questions, and oh yeah, Halo Infinite players that very much enjoy the Banished and Atriox can thank Halo Wars 2 for that one. Unless there was a book that introduced them before Halo Wars 2, but I don't think that exists. They also expanded more on the micro level, with better upgrading options such as being able to choose more leadership powers and level them up to make them stronger, a better secondary resource option from the power generations of the original Halo 1. The gripping story has some really fantastic CGI, including showing just how threatening Atriox is. Don't get me wrong, Infinite did it too, but now it's him beating Chief, and this is someone... If I did have to say a dislike about it, it's that I'm still not a fan of fixed bases. I would very much rather something similar to StarCraft where the initial bases are fixed and you can build everywhere. And also the fact that they've, once again, discarded Halo Wars because, it's an RTS game. But yet they took the Banished from it, which I just gotta say, put Spirit of Fire into the main series then. Don't kill him off or anything. I want to see what Jerome can do in an FPS Halo game after seeing what he did on that cruiser. Number 2. Yakuza Zero. I don't think I can do Yakuza Zero justice for this, but it's an amazing game. Simply because it can be so silly and so intense at the same time. How so? Well, one moment you could be hunting down somebody who framed you for murder while taking a detour to race some toy cars, then beating the crap out of some thugs, followed by some fishing at the docks, then followed by doing a job for a local debt collector, and then finishing it off with a rousing round of Dame Dame, Dame Yo, Dame Dame Yo. And that still doesn't give it justice. Yakuza's meant to be the spiritual successor to Shenmue, and honestly, it shows. It seems to have something for everyone. Fighting, mahjong, likable characters, betting. And I thought I'd be turned off by it being Japanese voices only, but honestly I don't mind it. These are really good voice actors. I just don't like having to depend on subtitles despite always having them turned on. Is there bad parts? Yes, absolutely. Some of the checklist things are bullshit to get, like batting and the camera shots, but the random encounters do start to get annoying as well. Also, grinding for money to upgrade yourself isn't fun later, and honestly, I feel that a lot of the combos that the game gives you just aren't necessary. Number 1. This was a close one between Yakuza and Endwalker, to the point where Endwalker only just eked over while I was writing this script about a week ago. That's not to say Endwalker is bad, quite the contrary. It's just Yakuza Zero was that good that it had such an uphill battle. At the time I'm writing this, I still haven't finished Endwalker, but from what I've experienced, it's nothing short of amazing. The efforts to make the world feel alive with the NPCs following you, the environments, the music, all of the lore, questions that have been asked for years finally getting answered, and, you know, it hasn't made me cry like Heaven's Sword or Shadowbringers yet, but it doesn't need to. It has me emotionally invested regardless. It is such an experience that I don't need to cry to enjoy it. Also, I like the changes that they made to the various classes, including my main class, Paladin, making it this support-based tank that it used to be once upon a time. I know I said there's a possibility of spoilers in this video, but I don't really want to spoil this one for you. The game is a fantastic experience, one which you should try, and the game does have a free trial, once they reopen it again. But either way, I very much think that Endwalker is the best game I've played this year, and, you know, it's up there as one of my favorite games of all time. But that's about it for my top 10 that I've played. So I guess we'll move on to the next one tomorrow, which is the ones which were a disappointment. Yeah, that was never fun. Still, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'll catch you all next time. Bye-bye!